let's turn now to plans to effectively criminalise rough sleeping, because ministers are facing revolt from their own MPs over the government's flagship crime bill that would give police in England and Wales powers to fine or move on rough sleepers deemed to be causing a quote-unquote nuisance. Joining me now is former Met Police Detective Mike Neville. Good evening, Mike. How can you police homeless people over sleeping rough?
Well, it's very difficult, JJ, and you'd think that the government would realise the police have enough to do. You know, there's 1% of thefts get solved and 5% of burglaries are solved. So the police are obviously got other things to deal with. And you would hope if they were going to introduce this legislation that they would produce viable alternatives to people who do sleep on the street, who are maybe forced to do so. And so what we've got to give these people is that there's no excuse for being on the streets. But I fear that the legislation will be introduced. They'll expect the police to do something about it. And these alternative venues will not be introduced. And then what will happen is that we'll just carry on as normal because the police, as I say, have got more things to do.
Yeah, well, Trevor, creating new laws to criminalise the homeless, that doesn't stop people from being homeless. They're talking about giving fines up to £2,500. How do you get £2,500 from somebody who has no abode and presumably has not got £2,500 in their pocket?
Well, as we've just heard, this is a very difficult and sensitive and delicate issue to deal with, but it needs to be dealt with because we are turning into the equivalent of the San Francisco homeless tent cities. And in parts of London, if you walk up the Strand on say 9 o'clock on a weekday morning, you'll find people sleeping in various forms of accommodation in the shop windows of shop fronts of shops all the way down the street. It has to be dealt with in a way which works. And the trouble is that just as with immigration, as soon as you identify a move to deal with it, you arouse a hornet's nest of protest from those who think that it's an evil thing to try and criminalize innocent people who are going about their business. But they are not going about their business. You've got to remember that there are 1 million job vacancies. None of these people are employed, as far as we know. There are plenty of jobs around for them to work for and earn a living and maybe put a roof over their heads. So the whole welfare system aggravates the problem of homelessness, plus the attitude towards families and marriage and divorce, so that people, young people in particular, find themselves almost booted out of the homes that they've lived in, and they have very little other alternative. So look, it is a complicated problem, but it needs tough action.
Mike, we're seeing the number of armed forces veterans who are homeless increasing each and every year. It's just going up and up and up. But I don't want to see people who've put their life on the line for our country, people who've served our country bravely, now being described as a nuisance. And what constitutes even being a nuisance? Simply sleeping rough in a doorway, suddenly you're a nuisance?
I'm a veteran. I was a soldier, and what I would caution about this, there are some veterans on the streets, but there are also people who claim to be veterans. And the first question I always ask is, what was your army number before I give them any money? But obviously, if somebody has been a veteran, is often suffering from mental health issues and the like, they deserve the best form of help. And I just hope with this there is some form of plan that not only do the councils and the sort of government bodies provide something, but there is coordination with service charities and with the Salvation Army and other voluntary bodies who can actually provide these alternative places. So there is no excuse, because Trevor is actually, correct about the issues in California. We really don't want that replicated in London. And you ask me what the nuisance could be anything, couldn't it? Being too smelly, blocking the door. What else could it be? It seems very wide and very easy to misuse. But I really do say that the police won't be able to enforce it because they simply haven't got enough officers.
I completely agree with you. But what powers do the police already have for moving the homeless on?
Well, they use the Vagrancy Act, which was brought in 1824, 200 years ago, to deal with the veterans of the Napoleonic Wars, tragically. And so the police already have some powers to deal with people and to arrest them if need be. But it's not, you're never going to arrest yourself out of homelessness. There's far better solutions, as you know, Trevor highlighted the fact that there's unemployment and plenty of jobs going begging. So there needs to be a better coordinated effort rather than the police grabbing hold of people and putting them in the cells.
Yep, Trevor, I don't think the public are gonna like this law. I don't think we'll be sympathetic towards it. I think Britain, at its heart, is a giving country. We are very charitable. I think people are going to look at our government, our multi-millionaire Prime Minister, and say, you're punishing people who are already at the bottom of society. Why would you introduce a law that is hurting those who are already helpless?
Well, I don't think, first of all, that you can blame our multi-millionaire Prime Minister for this. This has been going on for a long time. It's been growing, and it's been imported from America, and it's going to get worse as the fentanyl drug problem sweeps across the Atlantic, and we find people not just sleeping in doorways, but stumbling around like zombies. Where do you start? I mean, the welfare system is busted, and we've got no money to build new houses or any approvals for them to be built, and people simply do not want people sleeping in their doorways. I mean, why do they need to sleep in the Strand and in Bond Street and Mayfair? They are there in order to attract attention and act as beggars. Many of them, I mean, look, some of them, as Mike pointed out earlier, quite rightly, deserve all the help and support they get. But many of them are professional beggars, and they make quite a lot of money that they then tuck away or go elsewhere. I mean, I was in, no, I won't go into the anecdote, it's too complicated, but I can tell you that there are people out there who are masquerading as homeless when they've got homes, but they walk around with shopping trolleys full of their worldly goods, and they could easily, and they already do, from begging, make a living. They could make one legitimately.
Well, look, our future King, Prince William, is making it his mission to end homelessness. I think I'd rather support that more holistic way of getting people off the streets rather than saying we're going to fine them, we're going to throw them in prison perhaps. But Trevor and Mike, thank you both for your time.